Welcome, viewers. It's always a pleasure having you here with us on GIS. Today we're going to get into a very interesting topic, one that when you hear the full gamut of it, you will be amazed. I call it a concept, as we often do. We refer to math as a concept. But we have some interesting folks here who are going to put us on a different trend, a different level, a different plane where math is concerned. Welcome. And of course, we have a gentleman who's actually visiting us and a lady who is a part of us here in Grenada. Introduce yourself to our viewers.
It is an honor being here, Ms. Wells. Nice to meet you in person.
And you too.
Yes. I am so overwhelmed with joy due to the fact that many people from this great island, Grenada, who live in the United States Virgin Islands, and also in Tortola, I like to call it the Caribbean. Virgin Islands,
yes.
Right, have seen me on television and heard me on the radio in the Virgin Islands, and love the idea of helping people overcome the apprehension, intimidation, or fear of math. And they said, Dr. Yates, you must get to Grenada and introduce this.
I like the way you introduced yourself in the middle of a whole paragraph, Dr. Yates. Yes, he is Dr. Yates, and he's going to be giving us quite a concept. And we also have Ms. Isaac here with us, and we're going to get into some really interesting stuff here. Now, you claim that you're from the Virgin Caribbean.
Yes.
And that's an interesting concept. Perspective?
Perspective, yes.
of that area which you live. But I understand that your roots are from a different part of the region.
Yeah. According to my Mo'afa, mother and father, they educated me by letting me K-N-O-W, I like to pronounce that word, Kinau, instead of N-O-No.
Okay.
That I was born in the only English-speaking country in South America, independent since the
You play cricket?
Not as good as I play football.
Okay.
The American calls soccer.
Soccer. Yeah.
But yes, I grew up in an environment where cricket was well played, left and right.
Of course.
But I prefer football. Yeah, that's my sport.
Let me take this opportunity then to welcome you to the most beautiful spot in the entire Caribbean.
Wonderful. Okay.
I know you will be back after this visit. Nevertheless, we got to get into the meat of things here. Grasp.
Somebody's popping it.
Grasp. Matics.
Yes.
What on earth is grasp? Mathematics. Tell me. I'm very interested in finding out.
Well, first of all, it's two words put together there. The first word is grasp. According to Noah Webster, the dictionary, he defines the word as to grab a hold with the mind or to understand. But yours truly, Dr. Yates, redefined the word as to comprehend, not to understand, but to stand, so someday you will overstand. What we call the approach of math, and not the concept, right? So what I do is introduce a new approach to math, because I used to be a math phobiac in the school system. And I was, of course, being taught first by the British way of looking at math, and then secondly by the Americans looking at math. But I find it very tedious and very intimidating the way I was taught. It is true that my education started what they call the 1950s, and going to school in the 50s and the 60s. May not look it, and may the Creator be praised.
Okay.
That the approach to the way I was taught math was based in memorization, resuscitation, and rote learning. No, they have attributes.
We learn tables. We
learn timetables, right?
Twice, once, two, twice.
Right.
You know, very repetitious. And if your memory failed you along the way, you're in trouble with the teacher, that kind of thing.
The spanking is what intimidated the fear most of the time for me. You know, you're worrying about when I'm going to get spanked next if I make a mistake. So that kind of method of teaching didn't work for me. And then over the years, by being blessed, I don't believe in luck. I can now that I am blessed to be educated in they call 17 countries or nations. So while traveling in Europe and further my education, I spent 6 years in Germany. I have been educated in the language and the culture and the people, etc. So while studying in Europe, I learned that the whole world does not do math the way I thought that the British and Americans do, which is interesting because the way the Chinese approach it, the way the Hindus and the Arabic people, and also most indigenous cultures, when I do studies like the Mayan people, etc. Their approach to math is based on perceptional thinking, not conceptual Greek mythical ideologies. Right? So that's what got my attention. Wait a minute. I thought all of us feared this man. I thought all of us were intimidated by it, but I learned that other cultures approach it differently. And that aroused my curiosity. I said, wait a minute. The Chinese have their math. The Hindus have their approach of it. The Arabs have theirs. The Jews have theirs. Where is the Caribbean math? We need to have ours because we are suffering. Many students and even teachers have been intimidated by the math, the way it's taught. So what I did in Europe, I said, you know what, let me find out how the Chinese do their math and how the Arabs, etc. And I realized that their approach to math is about perceptional thinking, not conceptual ideology. That's why you mentioned in the introduction about the concept of math. This math I'm introducing is based on perceptional thinking, and this goes way beyond the Chinese and the Hindus, because according to my search, and not research, but according to my search, I learned that the people who were caught on the Ivory Coast of Africa, coming from the Cro-Magnon dynasty of Africa, which from Morocco all the way to Nigeria, these people had a mathematical system called the Kadisa mathematical system, which was based on perceptional thinking, not on conceptual ideologies and numbers and calculation, etc. What the Europeans who got involved in the slave trade did, they make sure that they assassinated the teachers and the educators and do not put them on the slave ship. We don't want those, the one with the intellect, the one with the brains, etc. We only want laborers and workers. So, but they failed to realize that even the labor and the workers already knew this mathematical system. So a lot of that information was in the DNA. People like you and I have inherited it in our DNA or genes of learning a certain way. Unfortunately for us in the Caribbean and or North America or South America, we were never given the opportunity to think along the line of our ancestors, which is a Kadisa mathematical way of thinking.
So we were actually reprogrammed at British. Is that what you're saying? Well, that is concerned, and other things as well. And other things,
right? Because the idea is not to make your subject as smart as you or smarter than you. That's a general idea. And that is the reason why we find in the European mathematical approach of counting, they start at 1. But with mathematics, we start at 0 because of the African way of thinking. The African way of thinking always felt that 0 is a starting point to all numerical directions, whether it be plus or minus.
It is a number.
It is a number.
It is a number.
Matter of fact, it is the number and not just a number. Right. 1 would be a number, 2 would be a number, but 0 is the number, meaning the foundation of all numbers. Out of the bosom or the womb of 0, all numbers flow because it's the foundation. And they define 0 not like the Europeans who define 0 as nothing. They define 0 as the circumference of all things.
Okay.
Right. It was a circle. Right.
You are basically, if I may put it this way, challenging the British dynasty with its mathematical teachings across the Commonwealth. You know, it must be a Herculean task for you to bring that sort of teaching or learning to the Caribbean.